What the hell is wrong with you? The only thing that's ever been consistent in my life is that question. Welcome to the ADHD Untangled podcast. My name is Rosie Turner and I'm an accredited ADHD coach, yoga and Pilates instructor. But ultimately, I'm just a human being who knows what it feels like to live with ADHD. And after having 8 failed driving tests, impulsive decisions to get married and then divorced before the age of 27, and having an inability to handle any form of rejection, I've decided to dedicate my life to supporting the ADHD community. And this podcast will cover the 2 things that I love to talk about most: movement and ADHD. You will hear real life stories from real people living with ADHD. You will get advice from wellness industry and ADHD experts. So what are you waiting for? Let's get untangled and show the world what we are made of. If you want to start by introducing who you are and what your life's mission is.
Oh my gosh, okay. I'm Amanda Perry. I am a business mentor, ADHD business coach. I hesitate using that word these days, I have to say. So yeah, mentor, speaker, and online supporter of business owners with ADHD. What is my life's mission? My life's mission is to support people who have ADHD, but I have a broader mission than that. I would love for everyone to understand that there is a way of doing business that works for their brain. So whether you have ADHD or autism or any neurodivergent condition, or you're neurotypical who just has, specific ways of working, like there is a brain first way for all of us to be operating so that we can. I meet so many people who have just completely fallen out of love with their businesses, and it's because they're just working in a way that is just fighting against themselves all the time, like every day. And that's just really depressing, isn't it? You might as well go and get a job.
Definitely. Yeah, because that's the thing, when you get to that stage, you're like, I left that job because I hated it. It was soul destroying. And then you're like doing more hours, doing more things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like...
And when it does come to things like ADHD, when, we've got so much to fight against already, we're already starting at this kind of minus 30 position to have to make up that difference just to get to ground zero, and then have to do all the stuff on top of that. It's really, really hard. So understand the empowerment of understanding more about ADHD and about our own version of ADHD, so that we can build these businesses. And it's not ideal world stuff, this is almost, it's a non-negotiable, really.
Yes, I love that. Do you know what I love about what you said? And it's very similar to what I do, like with the movement stuff and like meditation, is you're using ADHD or neurodivergence as a vehicle, but actually it's all about individuality, and that's the future. That's what we want as a future in all of these
personalization
areas. Is personalization. Even in schooling or whatever it is what we need, and that's where the brain first stuff is so powerful. Why do you not like to say that you're an ADHD business coach anymore?
The problem is that because of the way that algorithms work, we're talking about ADHD, we're consuming ADHD content, and it's all I see. And I'm just kind of sick of social media at the moment. I've got a bit of a it's too much. I think we all feel like that. I actually, this is going off topic, but I read this book, Careless People, by Sarah Wynne Williams, who was the director of policy at Facebook between 2011 and 2018, and it's just like created this conflict inside of me that I just do not like. On a very biological level, I do not want to engage with these platforms anymore. But I know that, it's we kind of have to become reliant on them. So, there's that. But then there's also just I don't know, there's a lot of ADHD coaches out there. And I think my problem with it is when people are using social media to grow their ADHD coaching business, which turns your content from something that is like helpful and valuable into something that's kind of prodding the the scab, that's like, you know, you're making people feel worse so that you can sell them the solution. I just think we're in a bit of dangerous territory with that at the moment.
I'm just so glad that you said all of this. I think everyone is sort of feeling this, especially if you're in the industry. And yeah, that book is actually on my top list. I just downloaded it yesterday and I haven't listened to it. So I was going to talk about social media coming up, but do you want to? I just want to ask you while we're here. I think let's just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Is now that you've got, you've had this insight, because your social media, I love it's one of my favorites, like out of all of them. I don't like Instagram and I find it really overwhelming, but I love your content because it is so relatable.
Thank you.
And I remember actually asking Alex last week, like, because there's a dangerous fine line, isn't there, between, like you said, ADHD content where it can be quite manipulative and actually make so much fun of it that makes it not serious, and there's all of that stuff as well. But when I look at your content, I always think, because you do so well with it, I think, oh, should I be doing what Amanda does? And I know that word should be eliminated. So do you think, as an ADHD business owner now, with all this insight that you've had from this book and where you're at, do you think we really do need to be on there, would you say, as a business owner?
I think that, I mean, for me, it always comes back to the brain firstness of it. If you know your objectives and if it works for you, you saying you find Instagram overwhelming, there's a way of using it that isn't overwhelming. That might mean you have to
avoiding it.
Well, yeah, exactly. But if you know that your audience are on there, maybe it's as simple as outsourcing it to a VA or using a scheduler, or, so you can create some distance from it. I personally think that, we're entering this age where we're like post Kardashian, aren't we? We're post like share everything that's going on in your life. Like, we don't want to be doing it. We don't want to see it. The new cool is like not being online at all, not being available at all. So if you can find a way to get your message out there, and I actually think this is one of the harder things for people with ADHD, very generally, I certainly find this hard, is being strategic, because it takes planning, it takes quite a lot of the executive functioning skills, particularly when we start looking at like batching content. That's quite a lot for our brains to kind of work out. It's like, spending a significant period of time on like kind of one umbrella task, but it's the planning and then getting all the bits together and creating the content and writing the copy and then scheduling it, and it's just that feels quite difficult for our brains. So it's finding a way that works for you, isn't it? And a platform that works for you as well. There's, LinkedIn. If you're not someone who likes to dick about in Canva, then LinkedIn is perfect, isn't it? And the reach is incredible. Like, you could build a really successful career on LinkedIn by never posting a thing and just commenting on people's strategically on people's posts. You could really easily build a career on there. So I think where we're heading to is just really understanding what works for you, whether you're neurodivergent or not, but particularly for us, understanding what works for you and not being afraid to just do that. The days of I have to be everywhere posting everything. And I heard someone say the other day, Alex Hormozy was saying last year he posted 64 pieces of content a day.
What?
Are you mad? Go and get a life. Like, come on. We don't need to be posting that. And there is also that bit of it as well, isn't there? Like, we are all dizzy from just the sheer volume of content. I feel like we all have a responsibility to just post once a day. Like, let's just post once a day and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like no more. 64
I struggle to do once a week. 64 a day. Oh my God, who is this person? But I'm so glad you said that, because I absolutely love LinkedIn, and you don't have to do it all the time, and you can write, and I love it. I think I feel so at peace on LinkedIn as opposed
Which
to
is weird.
Instagram.
Like, did you ever think you'd hear
No,
yourself saying that? I know, how
where did
weird.
LinkedIn get cool? Like,
I
honestly,
know.
well, is it cool? I think it is.
There's still a lot of very uncool people on there, but
Yeah.
there's a stat that's like, I think it's only 5% of people on LinkedIn post, and the rest just consume. They're on there. I'm sure it's 5%. It might even be less than that. I think
See,
it's
that's probably
5%.
why it feels so nice. Like you said, you're not overwhelmed by the content.
Exactly, and you're getting the reach, and and also I think the way the algorithm works, you're seeing fresh content, but it's always because someone in your network has
Liked it.
commented.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of the way like TikTok and Instagram work, but I just think, I don't know, there's something. I think now we all have our eyes open to what's going on in the world, and the world just feels so kind of heavy and out of control.
Yeah.
We're all just having to be really clear on what our path is. And, a couple of years ago, I think if you'd have said, oh, I don't like Instagram, so I'm not going to use it, someone like me would say, well, you don't really have a choice because your audience is there. Whereas now it's like, great, good for you. Like, where does work for you? Let's really focus on that.
And it's so funny because I was thinking about this morning. I attended 2 yoga retreats last year, and I was looking at, like, my clients and stuff today, and a lot of my business, like the ones that have been reoccurring business and stuff like that, really great connections, great community we built, have come from me attending
Yeah.
yoga retreats. So I wrote down today, attend more yoga retreats is part.
Yeah.
Instead of being on an
It's
Instagram,
right.
it's your new mission for marketing.
It's right. Like,
You know?
how simple is that?
I love
How
that. That's
simple
such
is it?
an
It's not.
organic. You're not selling yourself. You're just there being
Totally.
you. Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I need to dive into my Google Analytics and, where did this person get and how long have they been on my email list? It's like, right, who are these clients I like working with? How did I meet them? Yoga retreats. Right. Let's go to more yoga retreats. How simple is that? Yeah, exactly. But we overcomplicate this stuff. Like, we really, really do. We're really
Yeah.
in this. We believe everyone when they're telling us that we have to know this such granular detail of everything that's going on. And yeah, all right, some businesses do, but we're not Google, we're not Amazon, we're not even, I don't know, Adanola or something like that, an ecom brand.
No.
We're just trying to do good work for people that we like working with. And that is pretty simple to work out how to get
It
more
is.
of.
It's so true. And I think that's the thing, isn't it, of ADHD? I think that's the struggle we find. We can overcomplicate these simple things that could be quite simple processes, because our brain, I suppose, that non-linear thinking which is great for the creativity and stuff. But actually, when it comes to efficiency, sometimes we're like thinking about all the different things that we think we should be doing that we're
I
not.
think there's something more to it as well. I was talking to someone last week. We touched on it earlier about, are you better to know or not know? Like, was life simpler with, our parents or ancestors who were neurodivergent but didn't know and just like cracked on with their life? And I was talking to someone the other day about I've been in business 18 years. I was talking to her about like my business journey. And she was just looking at me, and she said, it's really funny how you talk about all of that through an ADHD lens. And I said, oh, what do you mean? And she said, you sort of give an excuse to everything, I went through bankruptcy and now I understand why, because of ADHD. And then, I tried to do this and that didn't work. And now I know why, but now it all makes sense. And I was like, yeah, but it does. And she said, but by doing that, you're kind of taking away all the brilliant things that you've done, because you're seeing everything through like there's a reason for it, there's an excuse for it, rather than I gave this a go and it was amazing. And I'm not explaining it very well, but she really had a point of, because we now understand our brains so well to such a tight, like, granular degree, we give meaning to everything and we can see it. So like bankruptcy, for years, obviously I feel a lot of shame around it. There was a lot of negative feeling around it, but I'd kind of got to the point where every time I spoke about it, people would like absolutely inundate me in my DMs with, oh my God, thank you for talking about this. It's so brilliant. Like, no one talks about this. I've been through the same, or I'm just about to go through the same. And, it's so great. And since my diagnosis, I haven't really talked about it because I've kind of put that another layer of shame over it of course I ended up bankrupt because I can't manage money and I can't pay attention to detail. And, I think there's a really interesting, I think we have to work out what we give excuses to and what we can kind of find the positives in those situations.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's why I hear a lot of, it's not an excuse, it's an explanation. It's what you do with what you know now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that aware, like we said earlier, like if you wasn't aware of that, it almost becomes another thing to go and have to do. Because even when
Yeah.
I started doing yoga before I knew about ADHD, that awareness was amazing, having more awareness of myself without ADHD, knowing that I even had
Mm.
ADHD. But with awareness, you come so aware, you come hyper aware of
Yeah.
everything. And then you feel like, right, well, I've got to go and work with this now. I can't just let it be because I know there's something, there's
Yeah,
something happening.
exactly.
So it
Yeah, you're
becomes like
like,
you
just
said, the
can I just
admin.
forget that? Yeah, can I just forget that bit?
Imagine
Forget
being
that happened.
oblivious to all of this. How lovely it would be. So how do you think then now, I know without it being an excuse, but maybe an explanation, how do you think before your diagnosis, or maybe even now as well, ADHD was showing up as a struggle and a strength? Like, what are the best things about having ADHD now that you've gone through? Because you've had 4 businesses that you said you made millions on, many of your businesses and that one bankruptcy. So how do you think it does play out as a struggle and a strength?
I think that so I have recently started or kind of been aware that I'm coming into perimenopause.
Mm.
So I almost see like before perimenopause and then before ADHD. It's
Yeah,
kind of
it's so
like
important.
I have these like markers because I honestly, and I guess like motherhood's in there as well actually.
Mm.
Before I was a mum, so I had a period I was diagnosed in 2020. We adopted my son in 2023. So for those 3 years there, I was on fire. Like, I will put my hand up. I am so guilty of being the person that used superpower when I talked about ADHD. And I never understood the problem with that. I was like, why? It is my superpower. Like, look at me. I can do all of these things. I would literally I would just work all the time. I would give everything to work. And I could see that before I had my diagnosis as well. So maybe it's motherhood is the thing that actually changed me and is
Yeah.
where, you can't just stay up for 24 hours working on a new website because you've got this idea and you want to do it. I am definitely one of those like jump and then learn how to fly. I've always been really instinctive in business, really like entrepreneurial. I've had 4 kind of key core businesses that have done well, but I've had quite a few others around that, and I've just always been all right with that. I've never been that person that's like, I want to start a business and I want it to be my legacy and it'll be this thing for life and I want to grow this huge team, and I've grown the teams, I've done all that, but it's still never been like I'll pass this down to my kids one day kind of business. So yeah, I always had that. I always had that. The strengths for me always far outweighed the weaknesses. And I think a lot of that was because I have been in business such a long time. So I've got strategies of how I know, where I put people in place to support me with those things, or even knowing what the things that are my weaknesses. So I can kind of mitigate them a little bit. But since becoming a mum and since coming into perimenopause, I feel like my life has just changed, and the things that were weaknesses before that were kind of really quiet and in the background, and my strengths were just are a lot louder. They are a lot louder. You know, the kind of overwhelm and burnout. Like the burnout for me now is almost a daily thing, and it's not this, oh God, I think I'm in burnout, you know, every few months of like, God, I've been working too much and going out and whatever. It's this daily, like, I can't talk to anyone, you know, and then like you
Mm.
have your sleep and reset and all of that stuff. But it's a lot. Like I know a lot of people are talking about perimenopause in terms of how ADHD and our hormones interact, and that is all really, really important. And I'm like lapping all of that knowledge up. But the way that it impacts our businesses, I do. I say this understanding that my experience isn't everyone's experience, but I do not know how women are holding down jobs going through this, because there are some days I cannot remember my name.
Oh God, no, same. And this is so refreshing to hear because, as I said to you earlier, it's like I think it's a big topic of conversation, despite not just the ADHD conversations, but women in general. Us doing things later in life, like
Yeah,
having children, but also being the first to have the business and have the child. And it seems that every woman that I know, whether they've had a child yet or if they're going through perimenopause, some sort of hormone shift, and whether they're in corporate jobs or running their business, they are exhausted.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that is the common theme, and that's all I hear is
We're
they
just
are
knackered
exhausted. Yeah,
because we have like the mental load, you know, being a woman, mental load. Then if you're in a relationship or you're a mum, the mental load is even more. And then the ADHD mental load is just like double, triple, you know, it's a lot. It really is a lot. And then you have I guess there's an added mental load, and maybe this is added to my current kind of falling out of love with social media, but this constant feeling of like being on your guard or having to like justify yourself, or oh, who's the next person I'm gonna have to convince that ADHD is a real thing, or you know, I had those I had an article in the Daily Mail and then a piece in the Telegraph, and they were both just so gross, like so completely unhelpful to the bigger picture of the world and, you know, kindness and humanity, and
yeah,
like just
vile.
so disgusting, you know, and you just think this is actually exhausting. Even just you know, I'm still finding out new things about myself. I'm trying to help people who've gone through diagnosis, trying to help people build their businesses. And then we have this wider narrative and this kind of cultural, you know, the culture wars going on around neurodivergence and ADHD, where we're having to justify that it's a thing or justify that we deserve accommodations.
And for those who don't know about the article, because it made me so angry, and I think it's like you said, you're battling every day. We're battling with our minds almost, trying not to, but at the end of the day, like you said, perimenopause, ADHD, and then it feels like we've got these external battles, and then that was that was such a personal attack, like in terms of your face was on these articles without
Yeah,
you even knowing they was going to be there.
yeah,
Do you
yeah.
want to tell people about how that, what was written, the highlights basically
Yeah.
of what was written in the article, and how you felt, like how you reacted to that? Because that is
Yeah, so I
awful.
woke up one day. I can't remember when it was now. What are we in now? April. I think it was like January time. I don't
Oh my
know,
God, was
whenever it
it?
was.
Oh my God.
I really think it was. I think it was because I think it was January. Anyway, I woke up one day and I had an email from the Daily Mail, from the Mail Online, saying, "Can we use this TikTok in our video player?" To which I responded, they didn't say what it was about, but it was a video that I'd done. It was a TikTok I'd done talking about access to work. And if you have ADHD, there's this government fund that's available where you can get this grant and blah, blah, blah. And I was talking about this on TikTok. And I responded to him, said, absolutely not, never. No, there will never be a time when I say, yes, you can use my video, words to that effect. And then someone messaged me on Instagram and said, oh my God, have you seen this? And you know, when you just see a message in your heart, you're like, oh my God, oh, what now?
Oh
And
God.
I just couldn't believe it. And it was it was two different things. He was asking for permission to use the video in their online player, to which I'd said no, but he was only asking that because they wanted to do that to support this article that they were already writing. So they were writing this article about how sick fluencers
Oh my God.
online are basically training people. So they were saying that my job is to create content to teach people how to say you've got ADHD and how to get this money off the government. And they were referring to it as a benefit. They were saying like, you can bag up to this much money for like freebies from the. I mean, it was just Daily Mail. You know, it was absolutely disgusting, like awful. And it's not the only article, is it? I feel like every couple of weeks there's another article where we're just like, oh come on, you know, is this really where we're in 2025? Are we really having these conversations? And it was just vile.
It's just it's so frustrating, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that as well, like
Oh, thank
personally.
you.
And but the frustrating thing is, and I think I posted when it happened, but is I know so many people of my my clients that have started their own businesses who really failed in the work. They felt that they just couldn't get on in the workplace. They felt they had failed, and they have started their own businesses, and I've been coaching with them, and they've some of them become coaches or done different things, set up their own businesses, and access to work 10 hours a week most of them get for a VA has completely transformed their life. And I've
Yeah,
had some people that before were suicidal because they felt they had no hope and nothing, no purpose, and having that support 10 hours a week has completely given them meaning. They
yeah.
do that, and most of them
There's
are
the
doing
difference
work
between
that
running a
helps others
business
as
and
well.
not. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And
that's
paying
the
their
other thing. It's just
taxes and
yeah.
like potentially going on to employ people. And yeah, it's so, I don't know. It's just our whole media industry is just built on clickbait now, isn't it? It's just built on rage bait and getting people to click through so they get their ad revenue. And unfortunately, ADHD is a particularly divisive. It's like in the 80s, there was like when people were just starting to talk about mental health and
Yeah.
stress, and people would call it yuppie flu. I don't know, you're younger than me, but people would call it yuppie flu, and it was this whole like, oh God, they're off work with stress, and it's this thing that anyone could kind of say that they have because you can't prove it, and people would be laughed at, and and it's the same kind of journey we need to go on, I guess, isn't it? Where I mean, I guess stress and depression, a lot of people still don't understand that kind of thing now, do they? But there's always going to be those people who don't understand it. The sad thing for me is a lot of these people who don't understand it, and I think the last time I looked, there was over 1,000 comments in that thread under that article, and they'll have like kids who need support going through this stuff, or friends or siblings, or relatives or something. There will be people in their lives who will avoid having conversations with them about the support that they need because they know that they've aired their views under a Daily Mail article, and that's really sad, isn't it? It's sad for them.
It's so sad. It's so sad. And that's what I worry about now is that, a lot of people were already, some people are really struggling to say or think that they've got ADHD. I don't know about you, but I know many that got a diagnosis and still felt that they'd, oh, have I really got it? Or have I
Yeah. Did I
actually,
just say what
just
they wanted to
say
hear?
what they wanted to say? Like we
Yeah.
doubt ourselves so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
already that we
Yeah.
don't need the world telling us that ADHD isn't real, or, how dare we get support? We don't need it. But I do hope we have that progress. I was thinking about that myself, about the mental health and how far it has come. It's still got a long way to go, but it's definitely like, I noticed my family talking about it now, which they were just a bit like, what is depression and anxiety, and that's, get on with it. So I do hope that that's what we have, in terms of neurodivergence going forward. Sorry to interrupt, but I need your help. I've just launched the very first CPD certified ADHD coach training for the sports and wellness industry. So whether you're a yoga teacher, Pilates instructor, or sports coach or therapist, or just somewhere in between, this training has been specifically designed for sports and wellness professionals who want to make a real difference. But why? Because it is proven that movement and meditation is game-changing treatment for individuals with ADHD. So now more than ever, we need professionals just like you who truly understand what it's like to live with ADHD. So we can start to lead the way and create accessible environments for everybody and every mind. So if you're ready to create a career that gives you freedom and also allows you to have a positive impact on the lives of others, then check out our website, untangledco.com, and join our first online training this May. Talking about hiring people, AI, you are a bit of a whiz on AI. And I'm like, you said something the other day, like if you're still using ChatGPT for just your Google search, then you're missing out. So tell us, how as business owners with ADHD should we be using it?
Oh my God. Okay. I mean, AI for me, let's just agree for the purposes of like being brief in this podcast.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into the wider context. Like we all know that there's issues around, copyright and how it's been created. We know that there's wider issues to work out. On the face of it, AI I believe, is the biggest game changer for ADHD business owners. It is going to put us on, or it is putting us on such a level playing field. If we can just stop using it to create those fucking dolls, we will be...
Everyone's creating these dolls. I keep seeing it.
Oh my God, don't. I can't cope. My neurodivergent brain is just, every time I see it, I'm like, stop. Like, the thing is,
what is the purpose of it?
Upset because of the environmental impact of AI, which I kind of get. There's a whole other argument behind that people are on social complaining about the environmental impact of AI, and social, particularly if you're posting videos, uses way more than an AI search would do. But I get that there's a lot of people are fearful of it because they think they're going to lose their jobs. People are, concerned about the wider impact on creativity, all of that kind of thing. I think that if this AI doll trend has taught us anything, it's taught us that it's not the people with creativity that need to be worried, it's the people without, like, that are just literally going on to ChatGPT, like, make a doll of me. I don't know. I don't even know what they're doing, but it's just ridiculous.
I just don't understand. I was just so confused, and I was like, I don't know what all these dolls are, but
absolutely ridiculous.
But that's so true. It's the
non-creative
ones, isn't it? Yeah.
So Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, who has made some like really successful predictions in his lifetime, he's talked about, I'm not going to remember the exact facts of this, but he's basically saying that by the year, I think he said 2030, AI will have replaced about 60% of jobs out there. And while most people are absolutely terrified, this is actually a brilliant thing, because if we're all working less and AI is doing a lot of our jobs, it means that stuff's basically going to cost nothing. Like things that we are paying for now, maybe it wasn't 2030, I might have got that wrong actually. But things are going to cost like so much less. Perhaps we'll only have to work a couple of days a week or a couple of hours a day. The other point that he made that I think is so exciting for ADHD people is where, that saying like, ideas are 10 a penny, the value's in the execution. That is not true anymore. Like AI is going to look after the execution, and the values are in the ideas, and we are the people with the ideas that can't necessarily do the execution, but none of that matters anymore. Because without, as we've seen with these dolls, without the creativity, the AI hasn't got a clue what to do. AI is just going to do exactly what we tell it to do. So in the in terms of like the future and how exciting it is for us in terms of opportunity, I just can't wait. When we're looking at right now, there is so much that AI can be doing for us. So if people aren't using it at all, or if people are just using AI, if people are just using ChatGPT to ask, oh, can you find me like three bits of social media news today to put in my newsletter or something like that? Like, you really could be using Google for that. ChatGPT has got so many functions now. So the task function, are you using it at all?
I'm using it, but only to help me structure words. So I love writing, but my spell check and grammar, and that's it. Is basically what I'm using it
Okay.
for. So I
Are
have no
you
idea. When
using
you mentioned this task thing, I was like, I need to ask her about this because I don't know what it is.
Okay, so the task function is basically, when it first came out, people were like, oh, you can get it to remind you to do this and that. And yeah, great, but I've got a calendar for that. What the task function is great for is setting it a prompt and then
Yeah.
asking it to do that for you every however often you use it. So, for example, ChatGPT sends me every Monday morning, it sends me a roundup of all of the ADHD, like business tech kind of news that I need to know that's gone on from the previous week. So it sends me a roundup of all of that news, and it breaks it down into some suggested social media posts for me per platform. It also uses that to create a 7-day content plan. I don't actually use that anymore. I've got out of the habit of using that. But when I first set it up, I never like used it to the letter, but it was really great to have something there that was just an idea of, I could kind of pick and choose from. Using the task
Menu.
functionality as almost a recurring task, like a recurring
Mm.
prompt, is really, really helpful. So you could have, say you send a newsletter out on a Wednesday, every Tuesday morning, ChatGPT could send you, a breakdown of all the news that you need with links so that you can use that in your newsletter. And this is stuff that's, it's not a hack in the true sense of it. This is literally saving people days and days of work. So it's either saving them time that they would have spent on something they can either spend with their family or doing other projects, or they can do things in their business that they never would have done because they just didn't have the time. They didn't have the time or resource available. So yeah, it's a massive game changer. Notebook LM is another one that I use a ton for stuff.
What is that?
So Notebook LM is a Google product. You just go onto Notebook LM, start a new notebook, and each notebook is kind of its own project. And within that notebook, you upload a source of data. So you could upload a link to something, a YouTube video. You could upload, if you're a student, you could upload a 100-page PDF that you've been given that you need to analyze, and it will analyze it, summarize it. You can ask it questions about it. It can put it into a timeline, but what it can also do is create a 2-person conversational podcast from it.
Wow.
So this, when you think about the application of this for, students or university students or people in employment or people like us so I was testing it out in my community, and I uploaded my book proposal, or my sample chapters from the book proposal, and I created the podcast from it. And this guy was like, oh, today we're discussing ADHD and entrepreneurship. I've got this book, Brain First by Amanda Perry, in front of me. And even just hearing that, I was like, yeah, you have. It's such a great tool for us, for people like us who, if I had a huge article, or if someone had sent me a business plan, something like that, and I just didn't have the capacity to read it there and then, I could put it through Notebook LM, get it summarized, understand the key points, and then if I'm if I need to listen to understand things, if that's the way that I process things, I can put it through this podcast and go off about my day and just listen to the podcast and understand it that way.
Oh my God, it's such a game changer.
Yeah, it
It's
really
making life
is. It
so
really is.
accessible for, I mean, as you said, obviously there are other sides to it, but everything you're saying is like, oh my God, if I had this as a child, or when you started, even
Yeah,
now, you know, doing this,
yeah,
doing the business stuff, it's like, it just makes things so much more accessible. Like, I'm thinking about research. Like, I love knowing the research behind our brains and sports and exercise, but can I read the academia? No.
exactly,
It's like, I
exactly.
can't. So then I really miss out on lots of things, you know?
That's such a great example. Like, you would be so brilliant with that additional knowledge, and imagine how much it would enhance the services you can offer, the prices you can charge, the people you can work with, how much more you can help the people you currently work with.
Mm.
But there's this blocker of, I'm never going to sit down and read through this, 500-page like
Yeah.
book, encyclopedic book that I need to understand. Putting that through ChatGPT, or putting that through Notebook LM, sorry, and choosing the way that works best for you. But I do have to say, on the kind of bigger picture stuff, on the copyright stuff, there is a way of doing this that is fair to everyone. The problem is the tech guys, the tech companies who are making billions and billions from this aren't prepared to do it. So there was recently this expose on Meta, where they're building out Llama, their large language model, and they had the opportunity to pay the publishers for the. So the reason that these large language models you like to use books is because their platforms are like conversational. The AI is conversational. There's nowhere better to pick up or to learn conversational language than a book where it's all, prose. So they like to use books. So Meta had the opportunity to pay the publishers for the rights to these books, where all of the authors would have had some distribution of that money. They would have been offered a certain amount. £2,000 was kind of floated. Instead of doing that, and this has been documented on an email chain from them, they decided that it was costly and would take too much time. So they used, I can't remember the name of it, but they used this online library, which is known to be an illegal source of basically every book that's ever been written. And they decided to use that to train their model so they could get it out quicker and save the money when they are making billions. So that is a bigger problem that needs to be solved, but that is squarely on the shoulders of the bros. This is
Yeah.
like, when we look at how we can use this technology, there are fundamental ways that we can improve our lives and the lives of the people that we
Others.
work with
Yeah.
by using these platforms. The rest is for them to sort out. I don't feel like I have an impact in that necessarily.
No. And also, like you said, though, that could be the difference between someone creative using it and not, because someone like us, I don't want them writing my words. I don't want to be
No,
using anyone else's stuff. I
no,
actually
no,
hate
no.
it when I say, can you grammar check this? And they've added stuff, because I'm like, no, I want it to be me. So I'm like, authentic,
Yeah,
authentic.
yeah,
It has, keep my words, keep my words. So again, that's, I suppose, again, the user, if they're not a creative person, they might be using other, be happy with AI writing their whole
yeah. Or
book or whatever it is.
there's people out there. I'm not saying this is what Alex Hormozzi's doing, although I'm sure that
Mm.
he is using AI, but there are people out there who are churning out this huge volume of content that is purely AI end to end. It's literally like, check the headlines, turn it into AI, turn it into social media posts, post it to LinkedIn, post it to Twitter, post it to Instagram. Like, every single part of it, even down to respond to comments in this tone, the whole thing end to end is AI. They don't even touch it. They're just off, going about their day. Like, I don't I see the point. I understand why they're doing that, but that to me isn't using social media. Social media for me is about building connections and relationships and, you know, engagement. And that is not it for me. So I think that people without creativity who are relying on it in that to perform literally as a robot, I think that there will be a big divide between like them and us.
Definitely. And actually, I wonder if it'll go, you know, you were saying it's like cool now not to be seen and stuff like that. You know, obviously growing these big numbers can be really beneficial for businesses in certain ways. But I heard a story about someone who had all these followers. I think there was like millions or something. And they brought out a t-shirt and didn't sell one. Did you hear that story?
Yeah.
Like, so I wonder if, you know, it will be actually, let's create communities that are actually real communities that we're connecting with on a level
No,
instead of, you know, all the big numbers. Some people, I don't know about you, but sometimes when you see really big numbers, you can't really see who this person really is. It sort of becomes a bit of a red flag sometimes if they've approached you for something or something like that, you know?
I think I've got a very similar story. I work with a entrepreneur that everyone will have heard of in their business in 2014, 2015, something like that. No, 16 maybe. And we were working together on a product using big social media audience that they had and a product that I had at the time. The audience was millions and millions. And we predicted that we would sell 5,000 of this product in the launch, and we sold 20 boxes. And that was entirely down to exactly the same thing. There was no connection there. It was like a faceless kind of viral account. It's not an account that's primed to sell product. And I actually think that, I mean, that was, you know, God, 9 years ago now.
Yeah.
But I actually think that where we're going now, numbers as in audience numbers just matter less and less. If you look on TikTok, you know, each video is its own piece of content. It doesn't really have any, how one piece performs doesn't really have any bearing on how the next piece will perform. It's an interest based graph now. It's not a social based graph. So it's not based on your follower numbers or anything like that. It's purely on how that piece of content performs and who's interested in those subjects. Mm-hmm. So I think we're heading into a time where the metrics, as in the kind of vanity metrics, just matter less and less.
Which is a good thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
what we want.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for me because I've just killed myself to grow an audience, but no, it is. No, it is.
You're great at connecting people though. So, you know, you're very authentic in your approach. I think what you've grown is going to be, you know, always of value.
Kidding.
So I am going to quickly go back to one point that we spoke about is motherhood and running a business. If you could, you know, where you're at now, becoming a mother, going through perimenopause and running a business, like what, because you mentioned earlier, like something's got to give. What have you had to change in the way you run your business?
I've had to change so much. I've had to just put a completely different filter on my decision making. Whereas before my decision making was like, you know, is it going to be fun? Is there potential to make money? Is it something I'm going to enjoy? Does it work to my strengths? Now I just have to think about it's really about the time that I've got available. And I saw Olivia Atwood talking about this recently. Someone was asking her about having kids. And she said, I just love being selfish right now. Like my work is so important to me. I love how selfish I can be and I can just take this booking that's there or do this work. And that is so true. Like I could be so selfish before in terms of, trying this project or doing this or going to this event and obviously once you've got kids or a child, that it just has to change, you know, and you want it to change. But there is this period of adjustment that is really disorienting. You know, your identity is you have to like really question your identity because you're not quite sure who you are anymore. You're a different version of who you've always been. And I think particularly I went through the adoption process to become a mum, to have a family. And I think that the experience of that process creates a different version of you anyway. And then the culmination of that process is obviously bringing your child home, and that again creates a different part of you. There's so much to it. I was talking about this to someone the other day, saying I feel like, you know, for me to have my happiness, someone else has had real sadness, like real pain. And I have such a responsibility to do everything I can do for him, to give him this life that we promised them. We were lucky enough, we had the opportunity to meet his birth parents,
Oh, wow.
and to give him the life that we promised them we would give him is just the most important thing to me now. So yeah, yeah,
Amanda, that's so beautiful. And it feels, oh, so I never knew about all of this. And this is just a wonderful, and do you know what it's making me think is like, it's so wonderful you've had that opportunity to now see, you know, obviously work's important to you, but be able to be selfish in a sense of like selfish for your family, you know, first for your happiness and,
yeah,
and for somebody else. And it's a selfless act, but be selfish towards what you say yes and no to, have those non-negotiables. And it's like, we have to wait for that permission sometimes, or something greater like what's happened to you, to be able to do that. But wouldn't it be great if we could do that, you know, before it took this? And
yeah.
does it make you look back and think that now, like how it, I suppose it's not easy to make these decisions, but almost like because it's become your priority, it becomes easier to set these non-negotiables now. Do you ever look
Yeah,
back now and think, why wouldn't I have done, how comes I found it
yeah,
so hard
why couldn't
before?
I do this for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's ADHD. I think one of the most profound things I ever heard about ADHD was how our, like, now not now mind makes it hard for us to have any empathy for our future self. And
Yeah.
that's so true for me, like, because our future self just doesn't exist. So, you know, for me, like, not having that chocolate bar because it made me feel crap in the future, or I put on weight, or whatever it might be, whatever I was telling myself, none of that mattered, because like that's not now. So yeah, I think that relates to it, doesn't it, in terms of it's really hard to it's really hard to think that way when you don't have someone else to think that way for. And I don't really think that's a people pleasing thing either. I think it's just it's nature, isn't it? You know, this is your
Yeah.
child that you love more than you ever thought was possible to love anything in the world. And you would do anything for them, but then you do also have to work to be able to do everything that you want to do for them. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it's a real push pull, and it's a
Mm.
huge, you know, it's the responsibility of it. I never, I always talk about starting my first business. I had a mortgage, but I didn't have children. I didn't have a partner at the time. Like, I didn't really have anything to lose. And now there's a lot to lose, you know, there's a lot to, like, I have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders, and it does weigh quite heavy. But then I don't know. I think that's another thing about ADHD, or about my ADHD, that I'm quite good when I'm in that place of like pressure. You know, I work quite well under pressure, or quite well under. I want to. And now I only want to work like 20 to 30 hours a week, so that I have plenty of time with my son, and we can do stuff when he's not in nursery. We can, you know, I'm just mum. I'm just around,
Yeah.
and that's really important to me.
Yeah, and I think it's, I listened to something the other day, and it's like not having that plan B. Sometimes we need to not have a
Yeah,
plan B. And
yeah.
actually, and we can, so it'll be really interesting to see how your business evolves now that
Mm,
you've got this, you know, new reason to treat it a different way, right? Do
yeah.
less, but still gain more in a sense, and gain
Yeah,
more can be
yeah.
in
Less
any,
but better.
really.
Yeah, yeah,
It's almost like when we don't have that plan B and we have a why with ADHD is so important. You've got a really strong why, like a deeper why beyond your
yeah,
actual business why.
yeah,
And that challenge, like that under pressure challenge. So it'll be so interesting to see how it all pans out for you. And you're helping people do the same, which I think is nothing better when you're actually, it's almost like trying to, yeah, I always say my own struggles. I'm not saying it's like a full on struggle, but it's trying to manage this new situation and helping others do the same as what you're going through. There's
Yeah,
nothing better, is there? There's nothing more meaningful than that, because you get it, you get your audience.
definitely.
You
Yeah,
have so many women in
definitely.
the same situation as you, trying to make it work. And I wonder
Yeah,
if that's where that hyper focus comes from as well on the AI stuff, because it's saving you time, isn't it?
all of it feeds into it, doesn't it? My
Yeah,
whole, if we can make more money in less time in a business that we love and we can feel in control of and confident in, because that's one of the things about, you know, that kind of grief process that you go through after diagnosis or realization, that period of grief, when you do start to look back and you lay this ADHD, or you lay meaning on top of your experiences before. So whereas you might, going back to, you know, my bankruptcy, for example, whereas I would have thought, oh, you know, the business wasn't stable, and because this happened, and I would look at kind of outside factors, taking responsibility as well. But when you find out about ADHD, you kind of take all of that on yourself and think, oh, of course it was me, and you know, and that all of that strips away your confidence in
definitely.
business. So there is that period after diagnosis or realization where you are completely detached from like your identity, and you do kind of have to work out who you are again. And if I can help people build that confidence back up, and that self-trust of like listening to your intuition and listening to that instinct that's got you so far, that we do kind of we lose for a while. So yeah, it's really important.
So important. What are the main principles of brain first approach?
So the main kind of the main pathway is we start off with awareness, which is the most
Mhm.
important thing. So understanding ADHD and understanding your particular ADHD, which is the really important thing, but you can't do that until you understand ADHD. So understanding the real key things that we need to know about, you know, interest, novelty, competition, urgency, our interest-based nervous system, how it impacts the brain, and you know, understanding the key fundamentals there. The next bit is alignment. So looking at your business in terms of what it looks like right now, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and the changes that we need to make it work for you. So, for example, a lot of people, using the content example, a lot of people will say to me that they aren't posting on social, even though they know that's where their customers are and how they can grow their business, but they're not posting because of XYZ demand. They'll call it like procrastination, demand avoidance, something like that. But it's rarely that. Once we dig into it, it's usually that. It's actually usually that they've got an hour in their calendar for content creation, and then they come, and that's like their hour for the week. You know, I can get a lot done in an hour. I'm sure you can, yeah. But we get to that hour and we're like, oh, okay, content creation is actually like research, ideation, creation, like creating the actual content, which, if unless you're using LinkedIn, isn't just like writing a few words, you know, it's like filming some video and editing the video, and it's like this content creation has just got more and more tasks in it, and so they're
Gotcha.
expecting to be able to do it in this hour, and then they call it procrastination when they're just overwhelmed and like, oh, I don't know what to do, I'm going to go into freeze mode. So working out those areas of the business, you know, for a lot of us it's around finances, that kind of attention to detail, the boring, like the responsibility stuff that we just have the fear about. So anything around accounting, legal stuff, that kind of thing. And then the final bit is action. So awareness, alignment, and action. And action is actually making it happen and not making it all happen at once. It's about, right, what's the kind of highest impact, lowest effort thing that we can do now? Let's get that into place and make that work and make a system around that, and then let's look at the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. So it's
Love
broken
that.
down into those, and there aren't there aren't kind of there's no set way to do any of them. It's all really personal. The awareness is kind of structured because that's like there is awareness around ADHD and there's awareness around understanding your own. But in terms of the alignment and action, it's completely personalized, which is, as we said at the beginning, absolutely how it should be.
Exactly. I love that. And you know what bit I love the most, which is what's the high impact task with the lowest effort we should start with. That is so useful. That's so useful to help prioritize what you should do first. Because I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but that's my biggest thing is like, where do I start? What one do I do first? And you end up doing like, the one that probably should have come last. I love that, Amanda. It's so great. And I'm just going to ask you some fire questions before we end. What's one common piece of business advice ADHDers should ignore?
Oh, eat the frog. Never eat the frog. Don't eat the frog. Do you know that
Fun
phrase?
first for us. Yeah, because this is where I say to my clients, fun first. We don't do the hard thing first.
Or just this is where for me it comes into understanding like interest, novelty, competition, and urgency. So there's there's kind of a matrix of two things there for me. So my best advice is like no big tasks. So often when people say that they're procrastinating and you look at their to-do list, they've got they're confusing their goals for tasks. So they'll have their to-do list is like redo website, like book a holiday, do the weekly shop. Like, it's just we've got this jumble of like brain dumps on our to-do list. No task on our to-do list should take a lot more than 30 minutes. And if it is, it's because you haven't broken it down enough. So no big tasks. Once we've got those big tasks and we've got them in categories of like under 15 minutes, under 30 minutes, under 60 minutes. And then we understand that our brain is only ever going to be driven by interest, novelty, competition, or urgency. We can then pick from those tasks because every task is eventually going to be urgent. So we have to cultivate that trust in ourselves that every task will be done eventually. And we have to pick it based on the thing that we want to do right now.
I love it. I like the 30-minute thing. That's a good. I like things that give us. I think with ADHD, we say we don't like structure, we don't like the word structure, which we don't. But actually, we thrive within it, and especially like a flexible structure. Something like that's so easy for me to take away from this conversation and go, right, what task are going to take longer than 30 minutes? How can I break it down into one more step?
How can I break it down? Yeah. And another great way to use ChatGPT, like going in there, I've got this is my goal. What are the steps to achieve it? It can help you. It can really help you do that. I think, we say that we don't like structure. I think we don't like set processes, but what we do need is frameworks. We need a framework to get something that's flexible that we can get stuff done without it being, now you do this, then you do this, then you do this. We need the concept around how to get it done.
That's it. And that's what the only thing that kept me in the exercise, with my movement, it's been a framework that I had. And I think a framework that I could adjust when I needed and and I think that's what we need throughout, isn't it? I love it. So describe your ADHD in one word.
Chaotic.
Yes. Chaotic. If you could go back, would you choose a life with or without ADHD? And I suppose let's relate this to business.
That is such an interesting question because if you'd have asked me 2-3 years ago, I would have said 100% not. And I still would say that because, I mean, we're dealt the cards we're dealt, aren't we? And I honestly believe that I am who I am because of ADHD, and I do 100% believe that. But I think I have more moments now, and I guess it's since perimenopause kicking in, where I think, God, this is hard. This bit's really hard, or this thing is becoming really hard for me now that I didn't used to have. My answer still would be I would choose my life with ADHD. There's some days where I'd love to be able to just flick that switch off.
Yeah. I suppose that the answer is as well, it's like if perimenopause wasn't in the in the picture, then you'd keep it. And then
I'd keep it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Without that kind of added added layer of like, oh God, I'm just like coming to terms with this, and now something else is hitting me. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
It is really hard. What final message of, encouragement, or would you want to say to someone who is a business owner right now of ADHD who's really struggling?
I think it's really important for people to know that there is a way of doing business that works for them. We have to pay our taxes and we have to file our accounts, and apart from that, everything else is up to you. So if there's something that isn't working for you right now, just really ask yourself who you're doing it for, because I think what we tend to find, and I know certainly for me, if I'm doing something that I think it just doesn't quite feel right, when I think about not doing that thing, my first thought is who else I'm going to inconvenience, or who I'm going to upset, or do I have to have a difficult conversation with a client if I do that, or someone I'm working with, or we do have to be selfish sometimes, and we do have to understand what works for us, what doesn't, and have the confidence to stick to that. So yeah, I would say if things feel tough, just really know that there is a way of doing something. The business world was built by neurotypical brains, business standards and neurotypical standards, and there is a way for us to do business that isn't about feeling guilt and shame and desperation and hopelessness, and thinking maybe if I download one more freebie or sign up to another course, and then doing those things and realizing that whoever you're working with is neurotypical, and you still you come out of it feeling even worse because everyone else is doing something that you can't do. So there are ways of working and running a business that will work for you, that will lead to you achieving the goals that you want to achieve. And I think goals is another one. Like, let's be realistic about our goals. We don't all have to be doing 10, 20, 30, 50, 100k months. We can set our goals as and what is enough for us, and that's okay.
I love that. And I think that what is enough piece is so important. And working out what that is, to let go of that perfectionism that we hold
and not
hard
just
on
enough,
ourselves.
not like how can I scrape by, but what's enough for me in my life, and however many
right
holidays I want. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right now. That's the other thing, isn't it? It's not no decision is forever, right now I'm in a specific period of my life where I'm choosing to prioritize family over business growth or whatever it might be, and that isn't forever, but it is really important right now.
Yeah. Oh, Amanda, thank you so much. And do you want to share what you're hyper focusing on, where people can find you? Because you said about a book, so when is that coming out?
Yeah, okay. So I'm working on the book. I am hyper focusing on my community. I've got a membership, so that's getting a lot of my time at the moment. And
Amazing.
Just working out, I'm building out Brain First as a thing. So working out kind of what that looks like and how I'm going to present that to the world, which is really exciting.
Hey, well, I'm so excited to see what more is to come. And also have you as one of our speakers on the coaching training in May as well.
Yes, so can't wait. Can't wait.
Thank you so much, Amanda. This has been such a pleasure. Honestly, been amazing.
Thank you, Rosie. I loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on the ADHD Untangled podcast. I hope that these episodes are inspiring you to step forward with confidence despite the struggles that you face with ADHD. If you want to find out more about ADHD coaching, retreats, trainings, then check out my Instagram, ADHD_Untangled, or my website, untangledco.com. Let's get untangled and show the world what we are made of.